Hey everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today we're talking with Nate Morse, founder and LinkedIn strategy consultant at Apex Conversion. He's a certification in content marketing and expertise in LinkedIn marketing, lead generation, business to business sales, and conversion optimization. I'm super excited about this because I think LinkedIn is an awesome platform for entrepreneurs that can really help us grow our businesses. So, with that, welcome, Nate. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
Absolutely. I got a ton of stuff I want to ask you, but I do want to start off just with your background. Can you give me a sense of how you got started in the field that you're in the like to begin with, I guess?
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled upon it because I was an entrepreneur. You familiar with an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I was an entrepreneur for about 6 years, and before that, I used to do like door knocking and cold calling and all of that. Anyway, so when I was the entrepreneur, I was bringing in clients and I was using it through cold calling, and I was doing well, but I needed to figure out a more scalable way to do that. And so I was looking at like I was doing cold emailing already, and I was looking at different like social media profiles that people would like know more about me, and it was less of me trying to explain who I am and find a time to call again. And LinkedIn had the best targeting, but also it allowed you to give a message along with the connection request, and so you could give like why you're reaching out and stuff like that. And so that really helped me in terms of like getting new clients and not having to spend all day cold calling. So that was the biggest thing for me. And then once COVID hit, the industry that I was in for the entrepreneur, that those industries, because it was like automotive, RV, and that was kind of not doing as well during that time. So then I went on my own, and yeah, I was focusing on, okay, what do I do the best at, which is starting like the right conversations with the right people, and then who do I want to work with. And so that was actually more of the like entrepreneur side versus the managing a dealership kind of setup. So yeah, that's kind of the journey that got me here, just the short version.
Very cool. So you decided that you'd focus on LinkedIn because you took a look at basically the social media platforms, the various lead generation things that were out there, and realized that you could sort of bend it to your will and use it in the way that you needed in order to get generate more clients from that. And then you thought from there, is that what made you decide, hey, this is a translatable skill that I can then take and help other people do the same thing?
Uh, yeah, yeah, basically, yeah, because I decided on LinkedIn it was a B2B platform. Yeah, better targeting, better for outreach, and then yeah, that's kind of how I made that shift.
Very cool. So obviously, I think it's a great platform for entrepreneurs. I mean, I have not been a big social media guy in my 17 years as an entrepreneur, believe it or not. While I was focused on generating software, creating software, selling it to small businesses, things like that, I mostly did it through affiliate platforms. And so for me, part of the reason that I sort of stayed away from social media was I had the misconception that, oh, I set up these profiles and all my friends and family are going to be on there, and then I'm trying to market and things like that, and they're going to see all the stuff that I'm doing, but I don't know if I'm really going to be able to reach other people. And then I would see what my friends and other people were posting. It's like, oh, this is the steak I had for dinner, and I'm sort of like, I don't quite get what that has to do with business. Obviously, I've come around and evolved on my thinking, but I'm curious. I think LinkedIn is a great platform for entrepreneurs in particular, but like anything else, obviously, it comes down to how we use it. So, what do you think are some of the most effective strategies for leveraging LinkedIn in order to drive sales and build relationships with clients?
Yeah. So the profile, I feel like is its own strategy, just because people are, there could be people visiting our profile right now that could be good fits for what we offer. So definitely the profile, and even if you're doing content or you're doing outreach, regardless, they're going to go look at your profile. So that's probably the main thing. Um, the I feel like that in terms of outreach, what I find works the best is if I can find people that are in the market. So instead of just saying something about their profile, if I can find things that they did in the buyer's journey, then I can enter that conversation that they're having and then actually, kind of like be the Yoda, be their guide throughout the buyer's journey. So that works really well. And then if you are making content, making sure to do outreach to the people that engage with your content because they're kind of in a sales conversation with you whether you realize it or not. So I think those would be probably like the top 3 just like main high level ones.
So in terms of, you hit on something that I think is really important because I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. I've seen a lot of people with varying success on whatever social media platforms or LinkedIn or even some of the other platforms. And one of the things that I notice is they'll create content with the idea to try to get engagement, but then when they get the engagement, they don't do anything. They don't do anything with it. And I'm thinking to myself, isn't this the purpose in the first place? Like, if you're trying to get people to react to what you're doing, and then people are reaching out to say, hey, I like that, I saw that, I got a good tip from that, or whatever, doesn't it make the most sense to follow up with those people because they're the ones standing up, raising their hands, saying, I'm interested, I want to talk more about this?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely agree. And yeah, there'll be even times where people have, people that are, in the buyer's journey that reach out to them and they kind of, mishandle those situations and don't really realize what's going on. I guess yeah, though that's definitely a thing that I see.
Do you think that some of the challenge with it is because like you did face-to-face sales, obviously, if you did door to door. I did too for a period of time. And obviously there's no real hiding. When you're face to face with somebody, you have your opportunity, but you can also see in real time how they're reacting. You can see whether or not it's working, it's going well or not. With a platform where I'm behind a computer, you're behind a computer, you're typing things, I'm typing things. Do you think some of the disconnect is people misunderstand sort of the medium that they're using? They don't recognize the human element of the fact that yes, it's a technology platform that connects us, but at the end of the day, you're still trying to build a relationship the way that you would in any other format.
Yeah, when I first started using LinkedIn to try to see how it worked for outreach, I was going online and seeing like what people were doing, and it all seemed very like kind of spammy, and so I was I tried that. I tried what they were doing just because they've been using it longer or whatever, and so I didn't get very good of a response. So I think I got maybe like a 5% reply rate, and then the interest rate was super duper low. So that didn't really work. So I feel like people maybe that I've actually said that before is like I feel like that the reason that people don't do as well on here is they haven't had those moments of like building the relationships in person. So it might be that disconnect of like they've never had to, do outreach or cold, could be cold calling, cold, door knocking, could be face to face, whatever you're saying. Yeah, if they haven't had that, I think that yeah, they go online, they try to see what other people are doing, and then they play this game of like handing out brochures, which I don't think works that well, right? Because it's kind of like, you someone walks up to you and you've never met them before, and first thing they say is like, "Hey, here's all the reasons that we should get married." Even if they are like a good fit for you, the relationship isn't there, and so it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that makes a lot of sense. I think, obviously there's stages in any kind of relationship, and I think for some reason, because we're using technology as a way to do it, there tends to be because even with, I mean, to be honest, even with phone sales, because I've done phone stuff too, you're still you recognize you're talking to a human being. Like when you get somebody on the phone, you're not just flat pitching them the way that you. But what I see sometimes in online is almost this shotgun approach of, well, you know what? If I just blast out a million messages because it's leverageable, it's easier to do that, then the odds are something's going to pop for me. And you could get some hits that way. But in general, you're probably going to annoy a lot of people along the way. And maybe they would even be people you could potentially do business with. But by the time they're done seeing your messages, they might get to a point where they're like, I'm just not interested. I don't want to continue this. I don't want to build it up. And I do think it's interesting that people will look at things online from such a transactional point of view. Yet if we're in a relationship with somebody, we don't usually treat people that way. Um, so yeah, I've always found that to be a little bit interesting. So in addition to the usual features, I know LinkedIn also has other sort of tools inside of it or connected to it, stuff like Sales Navigator, things like that. Can you give us an idea of, in your opinion, what the best LinkedIn tools are and how we can make the best use of them?
Yeah, sure. So uh, Sales Navigator is fine. A lot of times the because a mistake I see people do is they'll go and they'll get a Sales Navigator search and then they'll just plug it into some software and then they'll just run with that. But the issue is that Sales Navigator doesn't always give you a lot of the results that it gives you aren't really what you were looking for. So you'll find a bunch of like roles and stuff that didn't fit what you're asking for, and so that causes an issue. Um, and then it doesn't have anything like the only real like psychographic one I've seen is it has one that shows if you're active. So if someone's posted within the last 30 days, which is still a good that one is good. But I do like the newsletter portion. I feel like people don't use newsletters. Um, I guess as strategically as they could, because with the newsletter, you people subscribe to it, and then now they will get a notification and an email from LinkedIn whenever you publish a new article. So you're not relying on the algorithm anymore. So I think that using like smaller posts, like normal size posts, to bring people into newsletters and newsletters turning them into subscribers makes it so you can kind of like escape the algorithm and give kind of a deeper impact, because longer form content allows you to drive more change and beliefs in the buyer's journey and things like that, in my opinion. So that's uh, one of my favorite ones right now. But even just being able to schedule your posts on LinkedIn, I think people, if they're going to do content, that's something that they should utilize. But yeah, whether it's Sales Navigator or some kind of premium, whether that's the career premium, either way, you're going to want one of those, because without it, you're not going to be able to send that many connection notes. So, like that message that you add in, I think it's only like 10 a week or a month or something right now if you have a free account. And that's, if you're doing outreach, that's going to make a big difference. So, yeah, I would say that I could talk for a while on it, but those are probably like two top ones in there.
So I'm curious on the newsletter because I've heard a number of people mention this. I actually haven't set up a newsletter. Is there, do you have like best practices around that? Or if if I'm going after a certain sort of demographic or market or whatever else, what is the best strategy or what is a strategy for setting up a newsletter? I understand the benefit in the sense of if then people are subscribing, much like in email marketing, you'd be able to send them repeated things so you can nurture that relationship. But are there strategies for the setup for that?
So my thoughts behind it are, because a lot of people will try to create content that creates interest, and then they hope that they go over to your profile eventually, but they're just trying to get engagement, like you're saying. I really like to focus on what are the internal questions that someone has to answer as they go through the buyer's journey, and then how can you make sure that you're helping them with that. So those topics, and I think that that newsletter should really be focused around that.
Okay. And what about for a title? Does it matter if we have like a good title for the newsletter, or do you just what would you recommend in terms of a naming strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it should be something that resonates with them and tells them that that you really understand the problem that they're going through.
Very cool.
But I don't
Um,
think there's any like gimmicky like name structure or anything like that.
Right, right. No, I get you. And I mean, look, if you're dealing with business to business in general, you're dealing with more savvy people. So I think, I've seen a lot of low end kind of stuff where, blast type marketing where it's very Spammy's a good word for it, I guess. And you're just like, I don't know how that's gonna. And if you're dealing with somebody who's already a business professional, most likely, you're gonna need a different approach anyway to get them to resonate with the message. So um, let's talk a little bit more about the profile. So I know a lot of people on all the social media platforms will set up a social media account and feel the dreams, right? I built my profile. Now I'm going to be able to get, all these people to come to it and everyone's going to see me. But I don't see, not a lot of people, I don't think, put a ton of thought or work into their profile. Is there a way to optimize our LinkedIn profile that we can use it so when people see it, we're going to get better results?
Yeah, yeah. So you want to make sure that, because I see people missing, the two biggest things I see them missing is, or I guess three, is they don't. The first one would be that they don't have clarity on like what they do, which sounds kind of basic, but a lot of people don't really have a good way of showing like what they do. It's not very clear to people that haven't met you before. And then so like especially like in the banner, the headline, things like that, those need to be super clear in how you help someone. Second would be proof. People don't put enough proof in there. I feel like they have a lot of jargon instead of like giving results and like what they've done. And then the last one would be the kind of the call to action continuity. Almost a lot of people don't, like, you can go on someone's profile and let's say that they do have a good job of what they do and who they help. There's not, a lot of times they're not directing people to take that next action. So they might look and then they just might connect with you, but there's no call to action for them to actually take the next step. So you're gonna miss out on business with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I know just from all the sales letters I've written, all the emails, everything else, the call to action is so important. And it's funny because so many people just assume, well, geez, if I have a product or a service to offer, or if I'm on a sales page, if I've written a sales page and I'm talking about a product or service, it's just natural and logical that the person's going to get to the bottom and click the button. But I mean, they've done study after study on that. And when you say, click the button to check out now, your conversions increase, and it's interesting how, how that can be the case, but it definitely seems to bear itself out. Um, are there particular industries, particular niches that you think are better suited for LinkedIn marketing than others, or is it all just about the target audience being B2B? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your strategy, what you want to do. Um, Definitely B2B, things that are higher ticket, and it's already a business platform. I think like if you were selling, socks, I don't know if that would be the right place. You might want to like run ads on Facebook or something like that. And if you're using LinkedIn, maybe that's more of finding partnerships that'll help you out with that. What I like, industries that I like it best for are ones that where there's like an intimate, like the service is more intimate. So that could be like coaching or consulting. And so instead of, because what I see there is people have it set where they basically wait to coach or consult the person until that person signs up. But I'd like to have it where we enter when they're in the buyer's journey and then be the guide for them through that buyer's journey, and then they can see that earlier coaching and consulting, kind of energy, and you can bring them in a better way with that. So I personally, just the strategy that I use, um, the more intimate, the better, because we can leverage that earlier on and kind of show how that is. But yeah, it's not going to be for every industry like socks, like I was saying. But coaching and consulting, agencies, yeah, there's a lot of good services and offerings that people have that they can work for.
Yeah, that makes sense because obviously, if you're establishing a relationship and you're part of the brand, you're part of the offer or the service that you're providing, it makes a lot more logical sense if then you have a connection with somebody that they're going to be interested in what you have. So what about in terms of sales process, right? So, all right, so let's say we connect with somebody on LinkedIn, we've started to establish a footprint. We realize like, okay, we're entering conversations with people, we're trying to help solve problems, things like that. How do you go from that level of sort of the prospecting side of it to convert people over? Is it based on like consult calls? Is it based on sales pages? Like is there are there tips there, or is there a particular process that seems to work the best?
So like turning people into like turning conversations that you get into calls.
Yeah, or just going from the point where you're sort of in the prospecting phase with people and lead generation into the actual sales and conversion side of it. Is that generally you think based on conversations through LinkedIn where it's sort of you set up like a consult type call, or is it generally more driven to other web pages that then do the checkouts and stuff like that? Are there preferred methods there, or any tips or tricks?
I like conversations. I think that conversations are the best. That's the spot where like I'm the most effective, and I think most people that are experts in what they do are the most effective, and it's also more relevant to the person. So, um, I try to instead of just being like, "Hey, let's do a consult call," I try to figure out what's something like after I research them, what's something that would be valuable to them that can be positioned like a call. So for me, I'm helping people with LinkedIn, so it might be I might research like their LinkedIn profile and their company and their website and all of that, and then actually come up with a like strategy idea for them that I want to give them. Right. So how do you provide value where they're getting on the phone with you, but even if you guys don't work together, they still get a ton of value where that call was worth it for them.
Yeah, that makes
And that's
sense. And
that's kind of
okay.
what starts it with me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of good sense. Also, regardless, then you're creating goodwill, you're building your reputation. They're going to recognize that you're an expert at what you do, even if today isn't the day they do business. Because here's the thing, not everybody will sign up for your service or product or whatever else, even if it's a perfect fit, because there's other things that impact that. I mean, sometimes it's not the right time in their life. Sometimes they got other stuff going on. It isn't that they're saying no, it's that they're saying not right now. And so if you provide that value, you create that goodwill and that good relationship, you show them what you're capable of, there's always the possibility to be able to come back later and do it. Do you have advice or tips about that sort of nurture phase? Like, let's say you're going through this process and then you have your list of people and you're working with them, you're talking with them. Are there particular ways that you recommend in terms of follow up and things like that for LinkedIn?
Yeah, yeah. So I like to pay attention to things that they're doing, and then come up with more ideas. So I just consistently come with more ideas that give reasons to get on calls.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. Obviously, if you're following their journey, you're going to be able to see the stuff that they're doing. It's funny because I've had people do this to me, like what you're saying for YouTube. They'll look at one of my videos and they'll put a bunch of arrows and notations on it. Oh, your SEO isn't optimized here. Like I can help you with this or whatever. And I get it. I mean, as somebody who would be a potential buyer for those services, when you show me in advance before you're trying to sell me anything where you think the problems are and you prove to me that you can identify issues and resolve them for me, I'm much more interested and likely to be want to continue that conversation because it's no longer a simple matter of, hey, is there value here? I know there is. It might not still be the right value. It might not be something that I'm willing to write a check for yet. But at the same time, I recognize there's value there. So I'm much more inclined to take the conversation at least. So let's zoom out a little bit and let's just take a look at the sales process itself. So, not related to LinkedIn in particular. What do
Yeah.
you think is the most critical skill for a salesperson to have in today's day and age?
Oh, that's definitely going to be persistence. I think that a lot of people in entrepreneurship, even, I think they self sabotage. I think they don't try things for long enough, or they'll like let their energy or attitude get to a weird place, and so they need to keep a good, um, you know, I don't know. It's not clear head, but like a clear, like a balanced emotional state, I guess you could say, and just keep them going. And yeah, even if like you were saying, people they might not work with you now, they'll work with you later. Instead of um, being nervous about whether they're going to sign up or not, like work on getting more people into the pipeline. Focus, put your energy there instead. But um, yeah, a lot of self sabotage in that spot, and a lot of people, because I noticed around maybe 2022, I feel like is when things got a little bit harder in like the economy side of things, and I noticed that yeah, a lot of businesses were doing good with the people who were kind of lay downs, and they were ready to buy right now. But even just managing a sales process and actually following up continuously over time is something that they didn't do. So yeah, just by actually following the sales process, you can stand out in terms of like the current climate of things.
Yeah, I love, I'm a huge believer in process, especially in sales, because I was in staffing for a few years when I was younger. And, one of the things about staffing, like a lot of other sales things, is it's bigger ticket. So you'll have a week where you
Yeah,
might.
long buyer's journey. That's things that I specialize in is the long buyer's journey. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like if you're focused on your results for the week, you're going to have a week where you crush it. You're like, "Hey, I don't need to work now for a month because I just had a great week." The next week, you're going to do twice as much work and not close any deals. And that week, you're so one of the things that one of my early, bosses and mentors taught me is focus on the process, not the result. Because if your inputs, if your process is the same and you're methodical about it and you're not getting emotional, you're not getting too high with the highs, you're not getting too low with the lows, and you focus on the process, you're always going to have a pipeline. And so you'll have weeks that are better and days that are better and worse. But if you that's always full, you're never in a situation where, because the worst thing for a salesperson is when you're in that situation and you think there's a couple of deals that are going to come through, you don't have anything else in the pipeline, those fall through, and now you're at zero. It's very hard to start picking up the phone or knocking on doors when the stuff that you thought you could count on fell through, you had a bad day, and now you got to pretend that you've got all this energy and enthusiasm. If you know that, hey, these two didn't work out, but I got six more that, calls already scheduled for the next 3 days, and I've got this batch of stuff I'm going to do today too, it's a lot easier to maintain that momentum and that motivation. And the follow-up side of it, also I totally agree with. I know being in staffing, it was a super, super competitive industry. And I was making cold calls one day, and I would call the same clients over and over because you're geographically limited in terms of what you're doing. You got to have candidates that you can place. And so
Yeah.
some of these clients I had been calling for months. So I got this one lady on the phone. It was probably 11:30 in the morning, so it wasn't even lunchtime yet. And she said to me, "You're the ninth staffing call I got today." 9 calls before lunch. I mean, it shows you, if you look at the other side of that, why, if you aren't persistent, because it's all a timing game. They're not going to answer the phone when they're busy doing their job and they don't have a need. But if you're the one there when the need is there, especially like you were saying before, if you've done anything to provide proactive value, now you're going to get moved right to the top of the list in terms of, hey, this is the guy I'm going to call back. This is the person I want to talk to because I think they can help me with the problem that I'm having.
Yeah, I
So,
feel like I feel like it's more focused on instead of calling and trying to see if you get the sale, like building the relationship that's going to eventually turn into the sale, kind of mindset wise. Because I think they can feel that the person who's on the other end of the phone or the computer. It's weird how you can send a text message and it seems like they get the energy that you sent it from. Like you can send the same, phrase of words one day and a different day send it, and you'll get different responses. And it seems like the mood you were in when you sent it somehow got transferred. So that's a whole weird quantum thing. But yeah,
That is
so that
funny.
the attention I feel like is felt. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that is funny. I've seen the same thing, like in dating and personal things. You go out with the
it's all
idea, oh,
dating and this are all the same.
yeah,
All the
yeah.
principles are the same.
If you got that desperation, people can kind of smell it. It's like no.
Yeah.
When you're chill about it, then it works out better. Yeah, 100%. So obviously, getting leads is a critical function. Nurturing them is obviously important as well. So if what happens if we're in a situation where maybe something doesn't go as planned, like we're trying to do what we're trying to do, and we have an interaction that doesn't that goes south, or are there ways to salvage that? Are there things that we can do to maybe not repair, but sort of get things back on track?
No, you got to shut down the business. No, I'm just kidding. So like, how bad is this? Like, did you insult their wife, or what'd you do in this one?
Not me personally. I'm just curious. I did have somebody who he was typing out an email. He had just gotten off the phone with a client, so I'll give you a real world example here. And and he goes, "She's such a pain in the ass." And he clicked it, and he hit send all, and it was a reply all, and she was on the chain. And so it went out to everybody in the office that was in his group, but it went to her as well.
That's a tough
What
one.
he did,
That's a way hard. That's
he
a
he
really hard
tried to salvage it. He's like, just kidding, ha ha ha. And he sent that over to her directly. I'm like, I don't think she bought that one, dude. Sorry.
one. No way. I don't know how to save that one. I think that one, if you really wanted to, did they live nearby or no?
Yeah, well, I mean, sure, her business was down the street from our office at the time. So,
Okay. Not to say to like go to her house and make it weird, but I think that I think you'd almost have to come across them in some other intersection and be like and just be like, hey, it was great to see you. Be like, oh, by the way, like totally sorry about that. Whatever. I don't even know what you'd say. That's like I would never do that. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, but also I guess the other thing is my advice in terms of like the energy and the intention wise is I found that it's better because some people when they wake up in the morning and like for some reason that's where all like the stress is, like the stress of life is like I think that there's a cognitive dissonance between them in momentum and just waking up from sleeping and not being in momentum at all because they just woke up. But wait until later in the day, if you can, to send out like follow ups and stuff like that. Once that you're like kind of nervous, I think the energy is different. If you're in the afternoon, you're a little bit more through it versus in the morning. I'm way more punchier in the morning, so I don't know if other people are like that. I found it's better for me. But yeah, in terms of trying to, uh, yeah, I get because your question was to kind of like save a relationship that went bad.
even if it's not
Yeah,
bad, I mean, that's an extreme example. But
that was
but
an extreme
maybe
example.
maybe
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
someone who's a little bit cold. You're just having a hard time getting them to warm up to you. Is there anything that we could do to, I don't know, maybe break that ice or do something that's going to get them to be a little bit more receptive or feel that way. I mean, I know people have different personalities, so sometimes it's just that.
Yeah, yeah. There are some people that yeah, it's just a little bit harder to break through them, and they might be in some shape or form like set in their ways almost, and they don't like need new people or however they're thinking. They might be busy. So yeah, I feel like that. So I like to say that relevancy drives urgency. So if you can like research them more and find things, just like so sometimes, for example, there's a strategy where when you're reaching out to somebody, let's say that you want to work with a company and so you're reaching out to, you find like three or four people there that are like the decision makers. If you mention the other people that you're reaching out to, now they all know that each other knows that they got reached out to, right? So how do you provide more relevancy to drive more urgency? That would be one side, but then the other side would be figuring out, yeah, what's like a question or something that's valuable for them. Or you might even just have to take the role of, instead of being like the expert, you're more of asking them stuff like as a friend, like not for favors, but like asking them
Yeah.
questions, hey, have you ever experienced this before? Or I thought you would be a good person for this. Like, how do you show that you genuinely are interested in them, because they may have been barraged with, a ton of crappy experiences in the past or whatever it is. So a lot of it's just like finding that human angle that works versus trying to, just push a, concept or belief onto them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. Like the thing is, we don't know what somebody else has been through. We don't know what their experience is, and we don't know what kind of day they're having.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just have a bad day, and you just catch them at the wrong time. And we've all been in that situation where we're not feeling our best, so we might snap at somebody or say something that we don't really, So
Yeah.
I mean,
Actually, speaking of that, like, I just spoke to this with someone the other day. Have you read this book,
no,
Crucial Conversations?
no,
Oh man, yeah, you got to read that.
all
That's
right,
a
awesome.
Yeah, super good book, because it talks about this idea, and I see it happen all the time. I wish people would read it just for personal conversations. Is like, it's saying that when you're talking about something, there's like a topic on the table, and two people are looking at the table. The first moment that someone takes something personally, right? Even if, because nobody knows how somebody's going to take everything. How we take everything is based on the past, right? And
Yeah.
so it's impossible for me to know with fine-tuned detail like how you're going to take something. And so how do you make it where if someone says something and it sounds personal or something like that, that you ask them for clarification to see if that's how they meant it before you start acting in a personal way, right? And that's just an example that, maybe might not come up here as much, but yeah, just knowing that, yeah, just don't make assumptions, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's smart. I've definitely done that where somebody said something, I interpreted it as one thing. They didn't mean it that way. And then
Yeah.
when you start to talk about, so it can get a little awkward because it's
Yeah.
not really what they meant. And so I always feel like asking more questions is a smart way to sort of flesh things out. So I'll have to check that book out. That looks really good.
Yeah,
All
super
right.
good. And
Yeah.
questions are the key. Questions are the key, I think. Like, don't try to tell people things. Try to just ask them questions that gets them to that same spot, ideally.
Yeah, I always, I don't.
Even in personal relationships, like if you feel like that you struggle with normal personal relationships, that same stuff is going to come up in sales. So best if you resolve it now, boom, now you're doing better in every area of life. And who knows, maybe you and your parents figure things out. Who knows?
I know. Well, it is funny, but it is true. The power of questions is amazing. When you really start to get good at it and figure out like how do you ask the questions to get other people to to think in the right way or to answer and think about their own situation even. And I mean, look, that's what therapists do, right? I mean, a lot of it is questions. Um, all right, so let's fast forward to the future a little bit. How do you see the future of sales changing with the advancements in technology, AI, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be an interesting. I don't think anybody really knows, even like the next. Not going into like election stuff, but I mean, for sure now that we have Musk in there, that's going to be interesting what they do, because I think they want to deregulate AI. I don't know, but Musk still he's big on types of regulation for it. I think that the data is going to be easier to get in terms of understanding things about people and like what's going on. Like, I even have things that will look at email conversations and like their LinkedIn profile, and it'll give me where they are on like a DISC personality test.
Oh
And
wow.
like and before I write an email, if it's like a sales email in like a conversation with a prospect, it'll actually let me know how they think they're going to respond and like who's going to have the upper hand. Like it'll like simulate how they think it's going to go, which is kind
It's
of
wild.
a crazy thing. So I think stuff like that will help. I think just like you see now where people are more online and like in person people are like awkward and they don't really like walk up to people and say hi as much to new people anymore like you had to back then, you know, you had to
Yeah.
like to meet new friends you had to walk over to that kid's house and like talk to the parents and see if they had a kid, you know, like that's how it was. It's not like that anymore. And so I think that the availability of the information is going to be easier, but I think that people won't tap into that human side as much. And so I think that's going to be that like angle. And so it might even get more transactional in the future because people have more data and they should expect things to work better based on the data versus just being like, you know, that unique version of you in the human side that other people, you know, don't really get through data and stuff like. So how do you, you know, stick out and kind of you know, pique curiosity. And I think that that human side is the part that the, you know, AI and stuff is not going to have. Um,
Yeah, it'll have it right. It's got all the right phrasing and everything else, but it's never going to have the authenticity that two
yeah,
human beings are going to have with
we
each other. So,
yeah I think we live in like the most interesting time. Like let's say that this was all a simulation, right? Not saying it is, not saying it isn't, just like theoretically, right? Let's say it was. If you were to be the one creating the simulation, when would you, what point in human history would you want to see the like simulation of?
yeah, I'm well, I mean, I'm with you. I don't know. I think this is the most fascinating time. I don't know that it's the easiest to be. I mean, I think times were simpler, harder, but simpler. I'm not like making it sound like living 100 years ago was easier. Survival was a lot harder, you know, but at the same time, you had fewer choices, options. We were so much more connected to our survival than we are now. That I
Yeah,
think we're at a point where we're, you know, so yeah, I mean, you know, for me, I marvel at the way it is today.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, because you know, when I don't even know when the internet came out, but when I was a kid, it was like, you know, it was dial-ups. That wasn't even really full-on internet. That was
Yeah,
like, you know, beta internet. And I was so naive about the internet back then that I remember being a kid and taking like AOL had those CDs and it was like, hey, you get like a month free of internet or whatever,
yeah,
you know. And so I stocked up on those because I thought they were the internet, and I thought I had like a year's worth of internet now, which is not how it worked. But like we didn't have internet as kids, and so everybody was kind of like secluded besides like, you know, phone and then like telegram before that. And so, you know, we went from like nothing to the whole world connecting all at once, right? And so in the future now there's going to be more like regulation and competition and stuff. So I really think that we actually live in the best time that's ever existed. And so simulation wise, if someone were to create a simulation, I think that they would want to see like what do humans choose when they have the biggest opportunity,
yeah,
right? So I think that this is like the most interesting time, but also the best time because I think that, you know, you look at like YouTube, like you were talking about, and the content on there lives forever, right? Like LinkedIn, it really only lives like a day or two. The articles live a bit longer because LinkedIn likes to put them in Google, if you notice, so you can get more, you know, longevity out of the articles. Um, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we do now, you know, will you know, 10 years from now, you know, we were in an earlier time when more people were getting, you know, onto the internet and things like that. And so, if we could live for like 1,000 years, we'd be able to see more results from that YouTube video of, you know, how to clean your toilet or whatever people are doing, and you know, you get more out of that. But yeah, no, I do think that people live in literally the best time right now. They just that survival instinct of you know, avoiding things that feel bad, like rejection, I think holds them back, or second guessing things, and not being persistent, and you know, doing the you know, the shiny object syndrome. I think a lot of people, even with LinkedIn, like I'll talk to people and they're like, okay, I'm going to try it out for 3 months. It's like, okay, well, if your target market is on LinkedIn, like you shouldn't only try for 3 months, because even with that, the only the only chance that you have based on like the 90-day pipeline rule, right? Like how long it takes 90 days on average for someone to become a sale from a lead. I mean, if you're only going to try for 3 months, only the people that you meet on that first day when you're the worst at it are going to be the ones that have a chance at closing.
Yeah.
So when people ask me like, "Hey, how long would you try it for?" I'm like, as long as my target market plans on being there, I'm gonna be there. So I don't really have that dichotomy. I don't really know how to always answer that question. Um, it's like, I guess, do you want to date your business or do you want to marry it? You have to kind of decide
Yeah,
that.
well, and I think, what you said, you see this just in business in general, right? People want to start a business because they're chasing money. At the end of the day, that's not going to be the recipe for success, because somebody loves what you're trying to do for money. They're doing it because they love it. And that's your competition. So
Yeah,
if you're trying to chase money, I can already tell you, even if it works short term, it's not going to work long term. You got to do something where the passion's behind it, so you don't have a time frame on it. Your time frame is
yeah,
until it works. And so, to your point, I think that's spot on. If your market is there, then there's no time frame. It's a matter of you keep adjusting your approach. How long will you stick with a certain approach on what you're doing, maybe, or a certain strategy? But the idea that you're gonna can the network when that's all where your prospects are makes no sense at all. So,
yeah.
but I do think
Testing
people,
is.
yeah.
You're good. Keep going. Keep going.
Oh, I was gonna say, I do think people have a hard time, uh, you know, sticking with things when they don't get instant gratification, and that is one of the big challenges, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it seems like man, what was I gonna say? I had a good thing there.
We were just talking about the LinkedIn and the longevity of sticking with a particular approach.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I had a. It'll come back. Um, but yeah, the at least I remember the testing portion. Like, so I used to go and teach SaaS companies like how to do growth hacking and how to have instead of just throwing things against the wall and seeing if it sticks. That is something that I really try to help all my clients see, is like the testing framework of, just like you're saying earlier, the lead versus lag indicators. Like, you didn't say that exactly, but filling the pipeline versus the sale. And so working on seeing what are the results. Like, what does this give? A higher acceptance rate? Does this give a higher reply rate? Does this give a higher interest rate? Like, what's the focus on the framework of testing versus seeing if that thing just just works or not, and just overall, because you can't really base it. You can't really just base a whole platform on that. And
Yeah.
oh, I know what I was gonna say is that the people that are going just for money, because I've been trying to build businesses since I was 11. The only reason I got into sales jobs when I was 16 is that I felt that that's the skill that you need to learn to make money. And then I got into the marketing side later, even though I feel like I'm more sales dominant still. Which, when I did the door knocking, the first day I beat the company's record for like the last 6 years, and it was my first day
Wow.
trying it. So I was like, all right, maybe there's something here. And then yeah, then did well in cold calling, um, and so yeah, just kept going from there. Um, but yeah, no, I feel like those people that are wanting it just for money, I think they're actually chasing safety, because once you get the money, whatever your lifestyle is, once you get more than that, you're still gonna have that feeling. And if it's a feeling of safety, entrepreneurship is not the safest thing, because the people that if you work for a company, you're basically getting shielded from reality,
Yeah.
right? Like, they have an excess of funds and they're paying you continuously, but that's the numbers don't work out like that on their end. There is no like expected all the time thing. You're basically paying to get shielded from that. So if they are going for money, most likely that's just a safety thing, and it's not at all what they really want. If they are just like that, they probably should go find a job and get into investing maybe instead, something like that. Some long term blue chip stuff. which isn't financial advice, right? We got to say that. We got to make sure we say
That's
that.
right. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
funny. That's
yeah.
awesome.
But
All
anyways,
right.
yeah, that's my little rant on that part. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great, great advice. All right. So where can people find you, find your products, services, connect with you?
Yeah, so you can either go to natemorse.com, NATEMORSE, like Morse code.com, or you can go and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks for that. All right. I have one last question because I think it's important and I always love to hear what everyone's going to say. That is,
Go for it.
what's your number one tip for success as a business owner or entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's so it's going to be kind of a combination. So if you can take a step back and figure out what's the number one domino, what's the main thing that's going to either make everything else easier or make the biggest difference, like go and do that, and then once that's done, like just keep doing that. Find that next big thing. At one point you'll get down to scheduling and things get more complex, but it really is just making sure that you're doing the right things and making sure that you're focusing on that.
Excellent. It's great advice. And I totally agree. I think that, if you step back sometimes when we're in the fray of our business, it's easy to get caught up in minutia and this and that.
Yeah.
But when you step back, it's usually clearer and simpler when you see it from
Yeah.
a little bit more of a distance. So, um,
Yeah. And they're kind of they're kind of feeling like they need to follow this framework of like something, and there are frameworks that definitely help, but if you take a step back, like you're saying, really in reality, like you're doing a new business, you have your own variables, you're a person that's unique, and so you're really forging a path of something that's never been done, right? And so the biggest thing is just like, are you continuing to forge it or not? And there are frameworks and stuff that help along the way, but I think that mindset shift of realizing that you're pushing that new trail, I think is something that people need to know versus feeling like they should be going through some other kind of rut.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. So, listen, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for sharing all your insights, great tips. Everybody, you can visit keys.natemorse.com/book to get his Amazon bestseller for free, the LinkedIn high ticket handbook, and learn how to bridge the gap between you and high ticket clients using strategies, frameworks, and even AI. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as always, remember no matter what you want for your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.